What's up, family? I'm Andre Romance, and I'm at this thing again. What's happening, family? Today, I want to break into my video and go into a little depths about what we talked about yesterday as far as canceling black culture, right? So, I'm going to start off in the slavery department because I know a lot of us, we know about slavery, but we really don't think about it in the sense of that we inherited certain behaviors from it and that we are still using those behaviors today. And we're calling it black culture. So that's what I want to kind of talk to you guys today about. To start it off, we'll talk a little bit about America and how America was full of melanated people before the British got here, right? Before they came over here in their ships, they saw people that were already here, right? Now, they would have you to believe that these people were the so-called Native American Indian, light-skinned Indians, when they really were people that look like me. You know, they were gods and goddesses that look like me. So, with that being said, they came in peace, right? These people from these other lands came over here in peace and brought with them blankets with smallpox and all kind of other viruses and diseases and gave them to us, right? And said, oh yeah, this is a peace offering, right? What this did was it killed off about 80% of our people. There isn't really a timeline on how long it took for us all to get sick and die off, but about 80% of our people died on this land just from the smallpox and all the other diseases they brought over here for us, right? And so after that was done, now they have some sort of manpower over us, right? So what they do with the rest of us, the ones they couldn't kill, is enslave us, right? So they start up this slavery thing. Of course, they bring a few dark faces with them when they come here, but the vast majority of the slaves were already here on this land. And so things that we see that we actually get from slavery is the breaking of the culture that was here, right? You get the exile of the language, the native language, the native tongue, you know, which really none of us know today. We have the fact that slavery was dealt by conquering through violence, right? It was dealt through pushing fear of losing a life or seeing your loved ones raped or abused or killed, all of this craziness, right? Then there was the dieting, there was the sexual behaviors, there was the envy amongst the people. They created division through ones that look lighter than the others. Now, this happened a long time, and what I mean by ones that look lighter than others, our goddess were raped, and babies were created that came out lighter than the original. You know, lighter than the original gods and goddesses, right? This caused a division between the people because they were still considered slaves because they came from a melanated womb, but this caused a division. This caused status, right? This caused that house nigga versus field nigga mentality. So we have this going on now, and we see it today in the way that they be joking about, oh, light skinned is back, or dark skinned black in, you know what I'm saying? We joke about these things, but these are things that we don't realize are negative things that were handed to us through the slavery process, right? Um, the language, we were not allowed to speak our language, uh, and people were killed for it, for speaking their language. Now they were given another language in return for that, and this language was structured around spell casting of negativity, right? Spell casting, and this language is also backed by religion, right? To control rebellion, right? Religion was handed along with this language. So when they were given religion in the slavery times, they were given a different Bible. They were given a watered down version of the King James version, which justified for slavery. It justified for them coming and conquering and taking over a land that was not theirs, right? Because all throughout the scripture, you see in the Old Testament, you see how they just came in and conquered different lands that didn't belong to them, right? And they'll say that it was based out of wickedness because God saw that that land was wicked. Now it's ours, right? I mean, like, literally think about what's being taught here. So because there is a people that are wicked, we are just going to go over there and embarge on their land, embarge on their territory, and enforce our policies in their rightful land. I mean, we see this with America and how America, or should I say the U.S., I won't even call it America, because America was America before the British got here. Okay, the Americas were the original. Now, the United States was the attachment that added itself to the Americas, right? But we do it today, where we just go to other countries and we embarge on their ritual and their culture. We enforce our policies into their culture, right? And we call it freedom, right? We call it way of freedom, and justice. But not too much about justice is actually righteous, if you think about it in a sense, because the ones that are casting these stones, the ones that are making these judgments, are putting themselves above the people, and they're not abiding by these same laws that they're trying to enforce. So, getting back into the language. The language is based around casting spells of negativity. And just to give you an example, there's so many words that sound the same but mean something different. And this is the trick here. This is to get you used to saying a word that's negative, but you're actually saying it and meaning it in a good way. Like, for example, when you see somebody in the morning, you say morning, right? You say good morning. Now, what does morning really mean? What is so good about morning, right? This is all wordplay. That's just one word. There's a bunch of words you can go down and literally look at. Anything with con in the middle of it, or in the beginning, means something negative, right? There's something coming negative after con. When you con something, it's like you're taking over something, like conquer, confuse, you know what I'm saying? You're creating discomfort in that sense. But when we start breaking these words down, we'll start really seeing what they mean, right? Comfort, right? Are you comfortable? Yeah, I'm comfortable. But if you break down what these words are, these compound words spells that they put together to create a word to mean something positive, but the actual meaning of it is negative. The outcome is negative. Okay. From there, from picking up the religion, or from picking up the language, we then fall into the religion. Okay, so these slaves are learning the language pretty good now, right? So now that they're learning the language pretty good, because they're picking up on, they're picking up on what these humans are saying and using as words. Now we have to give them something to believe, right? So we've stripped away their culture, and now we want to put something inside of them. And this is what we do in the military when we're going through basic training. We are stripping a person of its essence, right? We're stripping a person mentally until there's nothing left. You break a person down to the point of suicidal thoughts, right? That place of feeling unimportant, or feeling like you're non-desirable, right? When you end up in an environment where you feel at your lowest point, you'll look to anywhere to get closure, even the ones that do you bad. How many times have we been in a relationship that was bad, but it's like your self-esteem is so low that feeling just the slightest love from that person that's hurting you is enough for you to stay. This is something that happened through slavery. This is a process that happened to where good deeds are done to manipulate a person to believe that it's good enough for them to stay, or it's good enough for them to not lash out, right? Or that this person cares about me because they do this one thing, or just do these couple things for me. So religion was given, right? And this was to control the rebellion. This was to keep the workers working, with the idea that, okay, if God is for it, then I guess this is what it is, to be comfortable and to just end up in that scenario where we just got to sit still now. We just got to do what it's going to be. This is what it is at the end of the day, right? Also, we used to sing in the fields. So they already knew that there was talent there. So how could they manipulate that to further destroy us, right? Music was one thing that they allowed for us to do. Entertainment was another. Entertaining was a big thing back then because there was no TVs and stuff like that. So having a live show was a good thing. Having a talent show was a good thing. And they would put these talent shows on and have our gods and goddess up there doing their thing and reaping the benefits for all of it. Okay, so we move past religion into the music, and pushing forward rights for us and incorporating us into society without accepting us fully, right? We see throughout the years this push for us to kind of swivel our way back into society, right, as an equal. But the trick is that we never became equals. The laws that was written, even through the amendments, they did not cover people who were considered citizens. Now, in order to be considered a citizen, you have to carry the name of the land, pretty much, right? Like American. You have to carry that name in order to be a citizen of America, right? But if we go by other titles, right? If we go by other group names, it doesn't back to be a citizen. It doesn't back us to be a citizen, right? We look at black, white, Latino, you know, we don't have a, they don't have a culture to back them, right? They don't have actual land to back that, right? And they'll keep giving us titles. Colored people, you know, African American. I mean, a lot of us have never been to Africa, let alone be able to claim that statement, you know, be able to claim that we're African. Keep in mind, you have to be born on the land in order to be a citizen of that land. So us being considered African is another thing, you know, and I'll leave that up for y'all to decide amongst yourselves whether or not you feel like you're African or not. But logically, wherever you're born at is what you are, right? Through the music also, as we look in today's time, they've used it to manipulate us in a sense that we take pride in the things that we encounter in life, you know, the things that we dealt with coming up, and we call it the struggle. And because we have been through the struggle, we somehow feel like, oh, we're entitled to be respected, or that's it's a good thing to have experience on that negative side of the fence, you know. I don't necessarily feel that way, you know. Like my dad, he went through the struggle, you know. He paved the way for me to see what he went through, and it was enough for me to not go down that same road, you know. And I'm pretty sure for a lot of people, they saw it the same way, but there was a lot of us who were influenced to embrace that type of behavior, to embrace the street life, you know, to go out and be all you can be, and it was you or nobody and nobody else, you know. You were looking at life from a selfish standpoint, and it's a lot of us out there in the street that's still doing our thing, still gang banging, still pimping, still hoeing, still having babies and not taking care of them, you know. I mean, we are doing all of these things just to gain these titles, you know, just to gain respect. And we're not taught that there is a proper way and a wrong way to gain respect, right? There's a proper way to succeed in life and a wrong way. There's a right way to raise your kids and there's a wrong way to raise your kids, you know. Which they, through music, have influenced us to embrace the division between the house nigga and the field nigga, right? We have people who make music about them over there versus us, you know, what we'll do to somebody if they come at us with this, or, you know, vice versa. You know, it's even gotten down to the point where sexuality has came out and become a huge influence through music, right? The things that we talk about, as far as the drugs and all of that stuff. Like, we look when drugs hit the street in our communities, and only in our communities, it wasn't thought about then that drugs was only happening inside of our neighborhoods and not in the suburban areas, you know. Probably very few people thought about it. All they saw was that they can get a piece of the pie and that they need to be a part of whatever was going on at the time. And so it was booming. At that point, division was already amongst the people. So at this point, we're conquering each other. We're getting over on each other. We're doing each other bad just to make it to the top. We're crabs in a barrel at this point, you know. By the time we get our own neighborhoods we start to excel. As you can see, right after the emancipation, we start to excel, and during that excel, something happened, right? Something happened. They come and they destroy our stuff again, right? They come and knock us down again. Now we're out and about making life happen for ourselves after slavery, and they just come and just slap us down again, right? After that, life takes a change. It takes a dramatic turn for us, and that's when we see self-hate kicking in, right? We start to see in ways where we were separated through some of us getting the ability to be a slave chaser, cop, if that's what you want to call it. But some got the opportunity to live in higher status than others, right? And this goes back to the house nigga, field nigga setting, where you see envy start to build up amongst the people, right? You have some that because they're lighter than others, they can do this and they can do that. The darker ones, they can't. You know, it causes a ripple effect, right? So we get a few generations down, where we're in a project now, right? And they literally call it a project. Now you got to think, during this time, diet was a big part that played in it too. So if we bounce back to slavery, when they were just giving us the scraps of the pig and the cow, and we was getting all of the organs of the animals that humans didn't want to eat, right? They didn't want to eat the intestines. They didn't want to eat the hooves and the ears and the tail and tongue and all of that. So they gave that to the slaves to eat. And the slaves, they figured out a way to make it taste good, right? They figured out a way to make it taste good. And it's called soul food until this day. Something in the soul went into the food to make it what it was for the moment, right? Because they was dealing with them circumstances. Now we look at what's going on today. We're in a situation where not only do we continue to eat that way, but it has become something that we embrace as part of the culture, right? We embrace it as part of Black culture. Soul food is part of Black culture, right? And it's leading to cancer and diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Everything that happens inside of the body, overweight, being obese, is a result of this type of diet, right? Now, one thing we never look at, which is most definitely there, is all of the chemicals that were placed into the water and in the soil on the land that melanated people were given after slavery, right? All of these areas were kind of poisoned, right? Poisoned. And to this day, they're still doing it to the water, right? And they'll blame it on the idea of fluoride being in the water for the purpose of keeping the teeth good, right? Of cutting down on cavities and teeth decay and gum disease, right? But you can only justify so much, but it's still unsafe to drink fluoride, right? And large amounts of it causes mental illnesses, different kind of conditions. On top of that, another thing that has rolled in was the pharmaceutical, right? The pharmaceuticals and the way they influence people to get these shots and and take these medications to further poison the people, right? So at this point, it started out with just killing off the gods and goddesses, right? Or the ones that were left over, the 20% that was left over. But for some reason, they couldn't get it done, right? And over the years, we have mixed and intertwined with each other. And the culture is mixing up. The people are mixing up. So everybody's starting to look like everybody nowadays, right? Everybody's starting to talk the same. Everybody's starting to act the same. There are people there are humans that feel like, okay, the gods and goddesses have been done wrong, and this land is rightfully theirs, and those are the ones they want to get rid of too, If you are king and queen, that vibe high, a human, and you back the idea that it's time for us gods and goddesses to claim our rightful place on this land, then they don't want it, they'll do without you too. And so what we have here is a separation and in the culture as far as living, right? So how I look at it, you look at all these places where it's super affordable to live, right? It's super affordable to live there. It's a lot of people there because it's affordable, but you also gotta consider what's going on in those areas. What type of chemicals are they dumping in the water in that area? What type of chemtrails are they letting out in the skies? What type of experiments do they have going on in those areas? What kind of chicken sandwiches are they coming out with next month? You know what I'm saying? I want y'all to just think about this. In the areas where they choose to do these experiments, it's very affordable to live. And in the environments where life is excelling and there's less contamination, it's very expensive to live, right? So that's how you have to gauge whether you're trying to get some land, you're trying to buy some land, you're trying to live somewhere. You want to pay attention to that. You don't want to go and hit the cheapest place that you can get, because chances are there's something in the water that's going to help further the agenda to depopulate your kids and make them sterile and all these other things, mental issues, self-confidence issues, okay, confusion, what gender you are versus what you feel. That's not a natural thing. There was a studies done showing and proving that baby formula, and I won't even go as far as talking about the companies. I will leave that up to you all to do the research. But formula companies were actually causing confusion in babies at a young age as far as what gender they were, right? And this is something that kids shouldn't think about. I didn't think about that type of stuff when I was young. I didn't think about what gender I was. I knew I was a boy, and that's kind of like where I took it. There was no sexual desire as a kid, but now these kids are growing sexual desires at a young age, and we have to start asking these questions. What's going on? Why is it? It's not by chance. And it's not an evolution. Evolution happens to the survival of a race and not the breaking down. So when you start looking at confusion in the gender, that's something that will prolong procreation. That's something that will stop us from procreating. So there's no form and there's nothing to back that's a natural way of life, unless evolution would have us to just stop procreating and die off as a whole. But I doubt that's what it is. As male and female, as a masculine and feminine energy, we have the desire to come together and create and multiply. And that's with any type of being. You can look at animals, but also studies was done using chemicals to to create this same-sex thing, and further along their agenda, what they're doing now with all of these chemicals and stuff that has been placed inside of the food and water. Also, the along that what came along with the diet was GMO, and the affordability of GMO versus non-GMO, right? The people living in low-income environments were able to afford the GMO more so, which is another thing. I'll backtrack a little bit. We left off with the music influencing the violence and all that stuff, and the drugs being inside of the neighborhoods, right? And us being taken so far back with the drugs that it pulled the gods out of the households, right? So they needed a place to put the gods, right? So there was the Jim Crow, that took place, to keep most of the men, from being with the families or even being in a place where they could have a family, and to further keep the men, because they know they knew they couldn't hold them much longer. Some of these people was actually living out their sentences, right? And they had to let them go. So how could they keep them outside of the families? How could they? Well, if they offer fake help to the females, right? If they offer fake help to the goddess through the food stamps and the Section 8 and the low income women, that they could push out the gods that's coming out. The gods that don't have a place to go. Where do they go? Who do they turn to? They can't go and stay with the baby mother, right? They can't go and stay with the woman because she's on this program now, right? This is a project. That's why they call it the projects. A lot of this was going on inside of the projects. It's still going on in the projects today. There's a lot of women in the projects that had been living on Section 8 their whole life and don't care to get off, and they will forfeit the idea of having a man in the household to do it. In these type of ways, we were manipulated mentally. And also, it's been something that's been taught through slavery, right? So we go all the way back to when slavery happened. All of these things were part of the agenda, and they just pushed it along. Along with that came the Social Security number, right? Everybody has one. You can't do nothing without one. It's like a stamp, right? It's a stamp that you are owned by something. So if you are not a citizen of the United States by the amendments, right, by the Constitution, then what are you? Well, you're just a barcode, right? You're a product, right? You're a worker. You have always been a worker, and they've given you the ability to live off of the farm now while still performing the work, right? Still performing the work, but grasping and maintaining all of these things that we learned in slavery. Another thing that came out of slavery, I mentioned earlier, was the sex behavior, right? In the sex behavior, we see our men and women get destroyed by the slave owners, right? We see them to get raped. We see them to be forced amongst each other. If we were talking about mother with son, we're talking about a slave owner with father. We saw all of these different type of sexual desires happening, wicked sexual desires happening amongst the slaves, right? This is a taught thing. You see that so much that you begin to believe. And when young kids see sexual activity like this, that's what they believe is the right thing, right? It's all a taught behavior. Children don't come into the world with the knowledge of sex, right? They don't come into the world with that type of animosity. So this, when back in the day, when slaves were being raped in front of the children, being raped in front of their family members, all of this was learned as something that was okay, right? Now there's still a sense of conviction amongst some of them, but it's still a learned behavior, and we see it play out in today. We see it play out in pornography, right? We see it play out in our relationships, right? We see it play out in the music, and the behavior is of a negative energy, right? Hence the idea of beating the walls down, right? You always want to thrash and bash, right? These are just, if you think of it, you look at it in a sense like, where's the love when it comes to sex? Where is the love? What is this kinkiness about? This choking somebody while you're having sex with them, or whipping somebody while, all of these weird fetishes. That's a learned thing. And if you start to think about where it came from, you'll see that it was part of the agenda. This same sex thing, it was a taught behavior from back in the slavery days, right? And no disrespect to the people that actually go through what they go through, I'm not judging you, if you're going through, that type of thing, where you like the same sex. I understand. It's part of the struggle. I understand it. And so I don't judge based off of that. But I do hope that there is a breaking point for you where things could happen according to how you were designed. Like if you were a goddess, I would hope that you are able to embrace that full version of yourself for who you are. And if you're a god, man, likewise, I would hope that you embrace and are able to thrive to your fullest potential based off of the tools that you have, based off of the tools that you were blessed with into this world, and not necessarily just what you feel mentally. But I love all, and I love y'all no matter what y'all going through, man. My advice is just to continue to reach within self and to find, to remember who you are, to embrace who you are, no matter what tools you come with. You know what I'm saying? So we see throughout this whole process, we are being poisoned, right? From slavery. We're being poisoned with all of this negativity, right? We're being poisoned with the wrong diet, with the wrong sexual behaviors, with the envy of each other through self-confidence and being insecure, worried about status, worried about somebody having more than you have, worried about somebody getting treated better than you. We aren't connected to a language that ties us back into our spiritual realm. We don't have that language, that connection with that language that we were able to tap back in spiritually and connect with the sources, connect with Mother Nature and connect with the ancestors. But we somehow made a way, right? We somehow, as gods and goddesses, still have a way to link back to our lineage. And it just takes us to meditate. When they gave us the religion, they gave us a few breadcrumbs, right? They didn't give us the whole story, but they gave us a few breadcrumbs that could help us to somehow sink. And some of us, we sink without, knowing the right, without giving the right attention to why we are able to, right? We just say, all right, God was moving through me, or I felt the Holy Spirit. But when you start really breaking that stuff down, when you start really understanding what's really happening, then you can't justify spirituality through religion anymore. Once you really start to figure out what's happening and what's going on, the things that you're saying, the motions that you're doing during prayer, you know, a lot of people don't really believe in chakras, but chakras exist, you know, and you have different portals, different parts of your body that act as a portal that connects you spiritually, right? And so when you raise your hand, you got to think about this. You have eyes here in your hands, right? So when you're praying, you're holding your hands up, right? I really don't think about this. In black churches, you are touching and agreeing on each other. You are using these eyes. You know what I'm saying? You are hands-on in your community, and you're actually bringing healing to the people around you. And it's not taught that that's what's going on. You know, it's not taught that this is how we're actually getting it done. You know, but we had the breadcrumbs through the religion, and we maintained what they wanted us to do with the religion. Now, we picked up and we thrived in the parts that was stolen about our culture, that was placed into into religion, but also that rebellion control is still there, right? We still have these laws that we're trying to abide by, but we don't necessarily need them. You know, wisdom is from within, right? And the more you seek the God within yourself, you'll gain that knowledge. You'll regain wisdom. You know, I was bringing wisdom at a young age. You know, I didn't understand why I needed to go to school, or you know, why I couldn't just be me as a kid, just go out and do things that kids like to do. You know what I'm saying? That's what I wanted to get to. I was always talking about love as a kid. You know, God just wants us to love each other and to be happy. I remember I used to always say that, you know, God didn't want for us to be struggling all the time and just spending all day going to work or going to school. God wants us to be happy and to live life and to be fruitful and multiply. And I used to say that at such a young age. But I realized that knowledge was already there. It wasn't something that was taught. It's just something that I always felt within myself, you know, and I resonated strongly with it. But also, you know, I was taught the religion. I was taught Christianity. I was taught, you know, we was all given this idea that God and Jesus was a white being, you know what I'm saying? Was a person of not melanated skin, right? Although, you know, in the scripture it described him as being a melanated being, and different from amongst the people. You know, he was different. And then also we see how he was so-called killed by his own people, right? So-called killed by the Jews, but we learned that he was taken to the Roman capital, right? He was taken to the Roman Empire to be crucified, right? So then also we find out that maybe he wasn't a citizen of you know, maybe he wasn't Jewish. You know, if he wasn't a citizen, because if he was a citizen, he might have been able to be killed by his own people, maybe. That's just my opinion. But when we look into it, that they had to take him to somewhere where he was a citizen and kill him that way, or get approval from who he really belonged to. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, y'all. But we start to see in this day and time these things. So let's go back. Let's recap real quick. So slavery happened through conquering with violence, right? The things that we gained from there was being toe tagged, dog tagged, however you want to put it, with a social security number. We picked up a bad diet. We picked up bad sexual behaviors. We picked up envy and jealousy for each other. And the division was there, right? We picked up a language that casts spells into us negatively. And we picked up this religion that keeps these spells going through control, right? And when you give somebody a little something to believe in, a little positive something to believe in, after so many years of telling them that they can't have it, they'll welcome it with open arms. And I think that's what happened here. We see where we couldn't read before, and now the first book that we can read is a religious book. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep these small little tidbits in mind, because this is how I break down the information when I'm looking into the information. I don't just go and I just take it and I just go with it. I have to sit and really think about what's going on in the scenario. I need the whole picture. I don't need just the front picture. I want the side view. I want the back view. I want the top view, the bottom view. I want every angle I can get of this picture before I make a real judgment on what's going on. So think about this. Religion, the Bible, was the first book that we was able to read, right? It was the first book they gave us that was accepted. All right, you guys can read now. We got this book for you, and it was a different version than the actual King James version. It was a watered down version, like I said before. So we have that. So we have this religion that comes into the black culture, right? And we're taking it and we're thriving with it. We also have the music. We're doing our thing with the music, right? We did a lot of positivity with the music, and I just saw like an interview with Crazy Bone, right, where he started dropping gems about what really happened with the music culture and how hip hop was taken, the rap music was taken and flipped to better fill up the jails and stuff of these so-called private owners, and cause further division amongst the families, and keeping the men out of the households and all that stuff. The drugs, like we said, destroy the families. There's like one family that I know of that has didn't have somebody in the family that was affected by drugs. In my neighborhood, drugs was a big thing growing up. And all of the neighborhoods that I lived in, there was a form of drugs happening, and you can most definitely see the destruction of of just people in general, from drugs alone. On the flop side, pharmaceuticals is doing the same thing on the larger scale, with drugs that they choose to use and make legal to the people, but it's doing the same things. It's killing the body, it's killing off the mental, it's killing off the positive mental behaviors in the brain, and it's killing off the body. The body is shutting down. Too much aspirin will kill your kidneys. It's just like stuff like this we don't think about, and we use. Some people there, have headaches. They take stuff for headaches, all the time. They don't think about like what the long-term, effects are, because you can get it over the counter, and that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for you because you can get it over the counter. But they have to create they have to divide the good from evil, so to speak, when it comes to drugs. But it's all the same. Overall, it's all the same. It's all doing the same damage to your avatars, right? Now, the fake help, which caused the women to enforce the idea of men being out of the house so they can continue to get those benefits, it's still a big thing. It's still going on today. People are still applying for the Section 8, and they're still applying for the food stamps. I have even been victim of the food stamps, and it's a help. And while it's a help, it actually puts you in a place where you don't want to make over a certain amount because you're not eligible anymore, right? So you fall into a category of, all right, I can get all of this money if I stay living at the bottom here in this low area, you know what I'm saying? In this little pocket here. But the downside of that is you never move out of the area that's full of intoxicated water, right? You never move out of the area that's full of GMO food, that's necessarily not necessarily gonna kill you tomorrow, but it is eating away at your body slowly, right? And then we have these industry, right? We have the industry, like I was saying, which is now since they've done a lot of damage with keeping men out of the household and promoting gang violence and all of that stuff and degrading the women, they've succeeded with all of these things, and we see it roll out right before our eyes. We've seen all of this stuff happening. And now, what I'm gonna say, and people may be offended by it, I don't mean it in an offensive way, I don't mean it to be disrespectful, but you see the LGBT community thing rolling out in music now, right? Lil Nas X is the forefront for this agenda, right? He is pretty much the cover boy for this, So that's the next agenda as far as getting rid of our people. We don't see people that aren't melanated up there doing that. We don't see so-called white people out there doing that, or Asians. We don't see it. We see our own people falling victim to these agendas and it's being broadcasted for the whole world to see, right? So he's the face of this next agenda that is rolling out, and pretty soon we are going to be hearing these same-sex songs playing on the radios for our children to hear. It's already in the cartoons, they already put sly and slick stuff into the cartoons to further along the agenda, to get the brain thinking at a young age that, oh yeah, that's good. I think that's what I want to be. It sounds cool. It's trendy, It's a trend that has become a danger to our population, right? It's becoming a danger to our population, because who's going to keep the population going? If we all fall down the category of this agenda, and we are talking about seeds. I'm not talking about you not being able to be a parent, because apparently you can go and just rent a child any day. You can just go and adopt some other child. But we are talking about bloodlines here. We are talking about actual gods and goddess. We are talking about our 9 ether, non-petri dish selves. We are talking about divine beings. What happens to us if we all fall for this agenda? Now, given some of us, like I said, we already have come to agreements with that type of lifestyle, and I don't judge you for that. But where do we go from there? If we all do that, what happens to our people? What happens to the melanated people? Do they disappear? Are they non-existent in the world that we call ours? Are we no longer the last in the beginning? I don't know. But the purpose of this talk is just to break in to what it means to be a part of the Black culture, right? Because that's what we have become so proud about and so prideful for, is accepting ourselves in our black skin, and Black Lives Matter, which was a a rebuttal that was started by somebody who's not even black, so-called black person, but one that invested millions of dollars into that thing just to have an agenda, right? So there's an agenda behind us accepting the so-called black title, right? There is a falling for us, the ones that are accepting the idea that we are black and not anything else, or African American, or anything other than indigenous beings of this land, of this planet. We are the dominant species of this planet, right? We have the most DNA links to this planet, hence the trees, the plants, the fruits. We have direct links. We have DNA links, DEA links to this earth, right? Because we are electrical beings. But we are giving that up for the idea that we are black, and we black and we proud, and it's becoming a little bit of wordplay. Because where did pride come from, right? Where did being proud come from? And why did they use those words, to describe this new agenda that's rolling out, right? Being proud and pride, having pride, They're making things that aren't sexual, right? Because there's nothing different about a relationship between two males if you whether you remove the sex or you put the sex in there. I was having this talk with my wife the other day. I said the difference between two best friends, of the same sex, and same sex in a relationship is the sex, right? Is the sexual behavior. Is the only difference. Now you can love somebody and not want to deal with them sexually. You can have that same type of compassion for somebody, that same type of love for somebody of the same sex, and not feel sexual towards them. And that's what draws the line between this agenda that's happening versus a righteous friendship. Just having a righteous friendship, and also using sex for what it was really made for. Now, what we see and what we've been taught growing up through pornography, because a lot of kids, they end up getting their hands on pornography, is that that sex is a recreational thing when it's not. And also that love is somehow intertwined with sex, and it's not. You can love somebody without the sex, right? Lust, however, is affiliated with the sex, right? Love and lust are two words that get mixed up a whole lot, and one exchanges the one for the other. It happens all the time. It's something that has been going on in society for years, for decades. Us not having a connection to our original language is really taxing on describing relationships, right? Describing what we feel, and being thrown into a category based on what we feel, and it's not necessarily the case, falling into these categories and gaining titles to unsafe and unfriendly environments. When we look at sex from a young age, we begin to believe that it's a recreational thing, right? It's talked about, losing your virginity is talked about. It's not practiced amongst the American law that sex is for marriage, right? They're preaching safe sex. They have rolled in the agenda that, okay, AIDS is out there now, and you can become HIV and all this stuff, and you can get all these different SITs and diseases and stuff like that. But they're not teaching the children that safe sex is sex that you have during marriage, that you do wait for marriage to have. Safe sex is sex that you have for the purpose of procreating, not necessarily just going out there to get a quick feeling, you know what I'm saying? But we have accepted the idea that sex is fun, and they have created things for us to further allow us to indulge in this recreational sex and dodge the consequences of having children, of getting pregnant, right? And they're writing it off as a positive thing. It really hurts my heart to see how this agenda is being pushed, and also how it affects the people that need it for the purpose of being raped or needing to abort a baby to survive, because of health issues, and then the ones that are out there having recreational sex and getting pregnant and not wanting that responsibility because it wasn't taught to them to think that way. And so there's this huge hit or miss when it comes down to the sexual side of things, and keep in mind, all of these behaviors are behaviors that was taught during the slavery part. This came all the way down from the slavery, and it came all the way up here to the recreational sex of life, and we end up talking about it. Now the goal is to smash as many females as you can. Now the agenda is to have safe sex rather than have no sex until it's time for you to procreate, until when it's time for you to have something to pass down. But we don't address these things. We never make time to talk about these things, and that's why I'm talking about these things now. All of this is considered a part of Black culture, right? And it's considered a part of Black culture mainly because this is what we preach in our music. This is what we preach on the TV shows that we have going on. We are teaching these things, and we're in an environment now where it's not behind closed doors anymore. This is all out in the open. We are able to influence the kids way faster than when before there was an internet, and before there was a smartphone and every kid had one. Now these kids, they can just look up pornos on their phone, and they can get access to it like that with the flick of a switch. You know what I'm saying? And what it's doing is killing the people, right? It's killing the people. Yes, we talk about the struggle in music, but look at the flop side. How many times do we have to talk about the situation before we realize that only talking about it the way we talk about it only antagonizes it, only increases the craving to do it, right? It only makes it sound cooler when you make it a song or you make it into a story. And people and children look at those stories and listen to the music, and they're enticed by the beat, they're enticed by the vibrations of the song, and they're singing the lyrics, and it becomes something that, oh, it's a happy, it's a cool thing to do, you know. At a young age, that's all you want to do is be accepted, right? You want to be accepted, and so you yield to the things that are most popular. Now, if everybody's doing this same-sex agenda, and everybody's doing this drugs and alcohol, and everybody's doing this unsafe sex, and you know, YOLO, and living their best life, and, you know, if everybody is doing all these things, if the kids are doing these things, what is their future? What kind of legacy will they pass down to their kids? You know, will they pass down the same black culture, or will we get past this black culture, and will we do something more profound, like when we remembered we were gods and goddesses, and we pulled ourselves out of Babylon, right? We pulled ourselves out of this negative vibe, this negative energy that was holding us in captive for so long. When will we step outside of that box and remember who we are? And not only remember, but start to move with a purpose, start to move with intent, start to move based on righteousness, right? Start to move how the ancestors and our guidance has been trying to nudge us to go, you know. I'm pretty sure everybody gets an inkling to do the right thing, right? And you kind of know right from wrong. You kind of know what things you should and shouldn't do. It's something that kind of flows naturally as you get older, right? If you want to grow up. Or some of us, we really don't want to grow up, you know. Like, it's some of us older guys, we still in the club with them youngs. We still in the club with the youngsters, right? The reason why we still in the club with them youngsters is we know we can manipulate them to do whatever we want. You know, we in the club only for sex, right? And the younger they are, the more willing they are. And that's the only reason why we in the club. We not in the club to pass down no knowledge. We not in the club to show these young men and young women that, all right, we got an agenda. We got an agenda to create for ourselves, right? We got a agenda to create for survival. If we want to be here in the next 1,000 years, this is what we need to start moving like. If we want our legacy to live past the next generation, this is what we need to start doing. Right? We got to start vibing high. We got to start vibrating with this energy, you know, or we're going to get left. We're going to get destroyed by nature itself. Right? We're going to become depopulated before we know it. There are things set in place right now as far as nanobots that are trying to put a seal on the deal, right? They're trying to put a seal on the deal that you're never going to come out of this trend that we're in. We are in the trends right now. Everything is fun and games for us, you know. And while it's not a bad thing to joke and laugh and have something happy, but when it's not a loving type of happy, it's the wrong type of happy. You know, when you're laughing at somebody's pain, that's the wrong type of happy. You know, like I said, this language has casted so many spells. This diet has poisoned us so much that we can't mentally think straight. You know, the sexual behavior is overtaking our babies at young ages. You know, at a young age, all they can think about is their body parts. They're not even trying to play with toys no more, you know. They're getting frustrated while they playing with toys. When I was a kid, man, all I wanted to do was play. I didn't have no issues with none of my toys, you know what I'm saying? It wasn't until I got older where I started getting frustrated And mainly I was frustrated with reading. I was one of those kids that didn't have a good reading comprehension. When it came to reading, I couldn't comprehend what I was reading. Sometimes I'd be at the words, I can get a couple words here and there, but I didn't understand what I was reading, and so I would get frustrated with that. When it came down to math, same difference. I got so far with math to where I'm just frustrated. Even when I started to learn trigonometry, once I got in college, once I finally decided to go back to college, and I end up inside of a trigonometry class. That class would have me in tears. The type of stuff that we were learning were things that I knew that I would never use again. And it was all for the purpose of, all for the purpose of getting this paper that says that I'm good enough, right? The stuff that we're going after, the things that we're chasing after in life says we're good enough. But are we? We're good enough for what? It's not saying that we're good enough to live, that we're good enough to make our own decisions, that we're good enough to be righteous, that we're good enough to survive, right? That we're good enough to have a righteous life in this earth. And that's what we need to get back to. I feel it every day. I feel so many people are connecting and getting and sinking in some sort of way, and some of us may not even know that we're sinking in, we're tying back in spiritually. But it's the things that are happening. The sun is twice as hot as it normally is. The gamma rays that's coming off of the sun is twice the amount what it usually is. And that's a big thing when you start to see the environment change from all the wrong that was done to the earth as a whole. You can expect backlash when you take a planet and you don't treat it right. When you have a flower and you put it in the pot and you never water it, it's going to die. You don't nurture it. You don't go out there and talk to it. You don't go out there and give it positive vibes. It dies. And that's the same thing that's happening to the earth. So when the earth starts to die, it turns into fertilizer for itself. It replenishes itself. Now we vibing in such low vibrations for so long are going to become, if we don't start vibrating high where we supposed to be, we are going to become fertilizer to this planet, and it will recycle everything. There will be nothing left. There will be not one soul left to tell the story about how we destroyed our own planet, how we took from her and never gave back. I watch it on the daily. We are consuming more than we are giving back. And it's a top behavior because of status. Everybody wants the biggest house. It's not about just having land and growing your own crops no more, It's not about that. It's not about utilizing the horses and the cattle to move, around how we want to move around. No, we gotta have planes. We gotta get there fast. We have to burn elements and put pollution into the skies in order to get where we want to get, instead of doing it natural. Whatever happened to making a raft and just taking the slow route. But the things that we are doing to create speed, to time travel, in a sense, that's what we're doing, time traveling. Every day we gain something that's going to help us do things faster, and that's going to minimize the time that it takes to do it. So in essence, we're time traveling, because if we never took on technology, we it would take us so long to get things done. It would take us so long to get things done. It would take us so long to travel that people wouldn't just be here and there and all over the place. Your attention span would be much greater if technology didn't exist. Now your attention span is, if you're still watching this video, hey, kudos for having such good attention, because nowadays it's so hard to stay focused on one thing. Like at the flick of the finger, you can be on to the next post, or you can be on to the next thing. But the attention is everything. Your attention is all you have, and attention, the time that you choose to spend your attention on is valuable, right? And so we don't want this black culture stuff, in essence, to be the center of our attention. But we want the gods and goddesses to reclaim their throne, right? To overcome from all of the hatred and all of the violence that we've gone through in the ages, and to come out gold, come out on top. With that being said, I love y'all. I want to see y'all doing great things, man. I want y'all to stay positive. I want y'all to continue to thrive in whatever you thrive in, man. Continue to do everything you need to be healthy. Detox your body, your avatar. Love your avatar. Love within your avatar. Love what's inside of the avatar. You got to remember that we are not the avatar. We are spirits who inhabit the avatar. But love who you are enough that you would take care of your vehicle, the way that you get around and the way that you navigate. There's so many different avenues that you can go down, and so many different places that you can experience just with using your avatar the right way. So with that being said, go out, love on somebody, love your children, not in a sexual way, but love them in a righteous way. Teach them in the way that they should go. When they become older, they will not part from it. I love y'all. Keep me up. I'm gonna keep y'all up, and I'm out this thing, man.